This one is about St. Francis. He and one of his monks was out to preach the gospel in the neighboring village. So upon arriving in the village, they passed the time helping folks. If they saw someone who was clearing a garden, they joined in with the gardener. At any rate, they spent the whole day just visiting and helping and chatting, as people do whenever they happen to be in the same spot for any length of time. And at the end of the day, Francis said that it was finally time for them to go back to the monastery. His young companion said, "Well, then, when are we going to preach the gospel to these people?" And Francis replied, "If these people have not already heard the gospel today in how we acted, then reading to them from the Bible will not make any difference." Again, it's word and deed. In short, the truthfulness of what we say has to be confirmed by how we act toward each other. I agree with St. Francis. And that's the message, I think, that is at the root of the epistle today from James. Actions speak louder than words. We say that. Do we believe it? I think Jesus would agree anyway. Jesus spent his 3 years in ministry telling stories, making up parables, but most of his teaching had to do with his doing it. Teaching lessons by what he did. And that's why we often say that we follow Jesus. We don't say that we repeat his lessons to one another. No, we follow him in the way that he lived. We don't stand on the street corner, most of us anyway, and read the Bible to people who walk by. Seems to me that's a rather fruitless exercise. No, if they can see the truth in us based on what we do, they're more likely to believe. And that's certainly the case in this morning's lessons. Here it's not so much what Jesus says as what he does that is the heart of the lesson, the part we need to pay attention to. Just last Sunday, I was over at Grace Lutheran, and so it was Saturday and Sunday. Anyway, just last Sunday, Jesus, in his words and his actions, literally obliterated centuries of Levitican teachings regarding behavior for Jews. And it was the washing of hands and the washing of dishes. And in my own experience, if you went to Jewish summer camp, you'd have to eat on blue and brown plates, depending on what time of the week it is, or what season in the year you're at. It's a very ritual-oriented, everyday practices. And in a way, the fact that I ate off those brown and blue plates when I was on retreat in this camp was a way of identifying it as a Jewish community. It was characteristic. It was an identifier. It was the required behavior of the Hebrew people to follow these rules. And Jesus did it when he obliterated it. He did it by not saying things so much as by what he did. He let his disciples eat lunch without washing first, or at least washing liturgically, the official kind of washing. They didn't ritually prepare themselves to eat. And from our point of view, typically, it's that we may wash our hands for other reasons, but not because we're Jewish. You see the distinction. But in those days, this behavior on Jesus and his disciples' point of view literally defined those people as how they related to God. It defined them as Jewish. By keeping the rules, it showed the whole world that you were Jewish and that one of God's chosen people. You were extra special. But Jesus, by not insisting his disciples do that, was sort of saying through his actions and their actions that the old identifiers don't matter anymore. It didn't matter. You were no more a child of God because you washed your hands a certain way than if you didn't. And then to emphasize the point, Jesus puts on his sandals and he walks down to the coast, to territory which was designated as belonging to Gentiles, not Jews. So everybody there was one of the other people not included as the